Well, when I first left school, I always wanted to work in children's work, but I left school at 15. My dad said, "You're not doing anything like that. You've not seen life." So I was a dressmaker, learned dressmaking in Nottingham, and then I worked at Ford's shop, which you won't remember, but some people might, until I was 21. Then I went into work in a children's home for Nottingham, and from there on moved to Galston-on-Sea near Great Yarmouth and took charge of a children's home. And from there I went to India to do a year's work in India. My aunt and uncle were missionaries, and I went to spend a year with them. I came back reluctantly at the time because my dad was very ill after a year, and then I went into work in a children's home again in Nottingham, and from there I saw the advert for Gwendoline Grove, and I thought, yes. I mean, I love babies, and I love young people, and I got the job. I always felt that it was a happy place, hoped it was a happy place, but I also know, I'm realistic enough to know that there was also a lot of sadness. There was bound to be, because, you know, the people that came, the girls that came, had either been separated from their families or, you know, got into some difficulties because they couldn't cope and didn't know where to turn, and so there was a lot of sadness as well, you know, and that's inevitable, isn't it, in that sort of a situation.
How did this sadness impact your approach to Gwendoline Grove?
Well, we like I've said, we tried to make it a homely place and a place where they could talk and unload, and when it was time to go, we used to try to make sure that they were going somewhere they wanted to go to, that we'd help to perhaps maybe put a flat together, or just put them in touch with people that, you know, could help them, you know, and the family care staff, social workers supported them very well, if that was appropriate. If they just wanted to go their own way, then that's what they had to do. There was no pressure for them to stay or go, you know. So
did the girls have a choice?
If they could make their own choices, yes. And I think when it was social workers that brought them to us, you know, they were probably at their wits' end to know how to help some of them, and so that they approached us. And if we got a place, then they would come. If that's what the girls felt they could do, and ages varied a lot as well. They could have been, you know, youngsters just out of school, or they could have been in the 30s. You know, there wasn't an age limit at all.
What was the youngest and oldest that you had? Do you remember?
I think it was about 15, as I recall. That I think the one was 15.
So how many girls were there?
Usually about 8. It varied a little bit. Sometimes we weren't full, sometimes we had, I think, main capacity, if I remember right, I think it was 10. I'm just trying to think. 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 bedrooms of the girls, and I think only one of them had 3 beds in. I can't just remember now. Yeah.
So did they have individual rooms, or no? They shared?
There were 2 individual rooms, and then there was one shared, and with 2 in, and then 2 others that had 3 beds in. Yeah.
Did the babies sleep in a cot in the same room?
Side of them, yeah, yes. And there was a little kitchen upstairs that they could make bottles at night if they needed them.
So at what stage did the girls arrive?
Well, again, that varied a great deal, because it might have been, because parents were horrified and they needed somewhere to go, and maybe a social, mostly. I only remember one lot of parents that did it privately, and that baby went for adoption. The others had social workers, either from family care, because all the family care social workers were involved, or social services. I mean, they came quite a long way, some of them. We had one from Grimsby, we had one a couple from Lincoln, and then mostly from Nottingham. And of course, coming out there, they must have thought they were coming to the end of the world, because, from Nottingham. But they made friends with each other, and they palled up with each other, and yeah.
Did they mainly seem to have friendships within the mother and baby home,
yes.
or was it outside as well? Or?
Yeah, well, mostly it was within the home, but they could have visitors. Parents came to visit, friends came to visit. So yeah, and some of them really just didn't want to be there, and I might get a phone call to say so and so's on the bus station. I said, right, can you bring them back?
Did they arrive before they'd had the baby, or after?
Yeah, yes, mostly before. And we spent many hours at Kingsmill Hospital waiting for the babies to arrive and rubbing backs and, all the rest of it. But some of them actually came, and we had 2 girls that had already had a little one. And, yeah. I'd already had a little one, and then was expecting a second baby. Yeah.
And how long did they tend to stay?
Again, it varied. It could be just a few weeks if they'd had the baby and needed someone somewhere there and then, or it could be within the first few months of pregnancy. And
how would you first meet the girls?
Well, mostly they would be brought. There was 1 or 2 emergencies that arrived, quicker. But mostly the social service, social worker would bring them to look round and to see, where it was and give them a bit of a feel before. The local doctor, Dr. Ragg, he was
Dr. Ragg,
yeah. He was the local doctor, and Nurse Barlow, and
she lived next door to me.
Yeah, she lives near you, doesn't she?
Next door, yeah.
So they came in quite often, to support the girls. And
say you opened the door, how would you welcome them?
When they first came, well, usually I'd try and have some of the girls around, so that they didn't feel they were just come, because I loved the house, and I slept there many a time on my own when it had been such that the girls had gone home or anything. I loved the house, but I suppose to a young person it was a little bit foreboding, because it was a great big house, lovely house, lovely grounds. And we had a greenhouse with vines in at the back, and somebody did, it was a sunken garden at the front, and somebody did the garden, and once you got in and got the feel of it, and I always used to try and make sure there were some girls there when anybody came for a first visit. And
what were you trying to achieve?
Well, a bit of a homely atmosphere, rather than thinking they'd been stuck away in a naughty girl's home, because it wasn't like that at all. I mean, we never treated them that they'd done anything wrong or whatever. It was something that had happened, and it might have been a real shock to the parents, and sometimes they might just have wanted time. And parents did come and visit. They did come and visit. Yeah, it was, well, I hope it was a homely. We've tried to make it that way anyway.
So you mentioned that they might feel like they were coming to a naughty girl's home.
Yeah.
Do you think other people, did you ever get the feeling other people thought that?
I think sometimes people did, in the village. I don't know what they, they always appeared to be, okay with us, and and to be all right with the girls. And when we went to church, they if they had coffee mornings and things like that, we used to go, and 2 or 3 of them would walk down to the village with their prams together, and they were usually fairly well. I only really remember one incident where somebody came back in tears and said somebody had a go at her because you were from that home, sort of thing. And I only remember one incident like that. There might have been more, I forget now, because it's a lot of years now.
And how did that make you feel when you heard about it?
I was very sad about it, and we did talk about it a lot, and I went down, and it was one of the shops, and we talked about it, and I said, come up and visit us, and then you'll see, the girls have obviously needed somewhere to go, and we provided that, as best we could.
It was frowned upon, weren't it?
Yes, it was.
It was something I was telling you about myself, and it's really, there was a girl at school, and she got expelled. Well, now it's just
they provide
expelled for what?
Being pregnant.
I was at Gurney. Yeah, if it happens. Yeah, yeah.
So they could come to you without shame and judgment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And all the staff, except me, were all local. They were all from the village.
What did you think about Clipston when you first arrived there?
I don't know. I thought to myself, have I come too far out? Sort of wondering. Because I bussed it all the time. You see, I used to get the bus into Mansfield, and then the local bus out to Clipston, and gradually I just got used to it, and I was very happy there. Yeah, very happy.
So you didn't live at Gwendoline Grove?
I lived in for we had usually I worked all week, and then when I could, I liked to try and come home at the weekends, because I like to go to my own church, was United Reformed Church. But when we were there, Sue's mum and dad used to give us lifts down to church, and Barbara and Frank Reed used to come and take us down to church. And some of the girls would go with their babies, some flatly refused, fair enough, and gradually got used to it, and I enjoyed the time there.
So can you describe Gwendoline Grove?
Well, I've shown you the picture, because it was a big old house, and not much money. Family care never had much money, but the girls that came seemed to be soon settled in and made their own. They had their own sitting room and the nursery, and I had the sitting room was the office, and we had some lovely prams given them, and they used to walk down with into the village with the prams. On the back, I think you can just see one pram there, because they used to go out the back and put the washing on the line. We encouraged them to do as much as we could, to prepare them for when they were going back into a flat or house or whatever the future held for them. So they took part after every meal. Everybody had a job: one washed, one dried, one cleared away, and somebody would help to get the meal. Sometimes they rebelled and said, no, we're not. So they weren't forced to do it, but we encouraged them to. Some of them were very clever as well. And the one girl, she did a wonderful painting on the wall of the nursery of Bambi, and it was absolute. I was heartbroken when I knew they were pulling it down, because that wall had been there for a long time when she'd done that, and it was beautiful. They were encouraged to do their own. If they wanted to go out, and have a bit of time, I was happy to babysit. I didn't mind babysitting, and I spent a lot of time in the nursery. They didn't go out often without their babies, but occasionally they'd have a night out.
And would that be in Clipston?
Mostly. I think one or two did venture a little bit further, but mostly it was Clipston.
So, do you know whereabouts in Clipston they would have gone?
I don't
would it?
actually. I can't remember what they did. If they went out to the, I think they was a pub in the. I think they did go.
The Welfare, the Squinting Cat.
Oh, that was it. The Squinting Cat. Yes, I think some of them did have a go down there a bit.
That's pulled down there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Vicar's Water. They used to like to go down there with the prams and that, you know, and.
Did you go with them?
Sometimes, but not often, because that was their time, you know. And mostly I was there from Sunday night until Friday. But if the other staff wanted the weekend off, then I was there at the weekend. I had a flat in Arnold. I didn't see a lot of it, but it was there. Because I was, you know... One thing I always wanted to do and felt was important, that we were there like Christmas time and that, you know, whereas when I worked in children's homes, the children there were expected to be go to families that perhaps they didn't even know, but in the best will in the world they'd been offered to take a child in for Christmas. And what does that do to a child, you know, that doesn't know them? And I used to get very, very cross about it, but I didn't have any backup much from the house parents there, because I was only an assistant junior there.
So what kind of atmosphere were you trying to create in doing that?
A homely one. And we always had a Christmas party that people were invited to from the church and from the village. And if anybody hadn't got anywhere to go, didn't want to go away at Christmas, they could stay, because I stayed.
So can you tell me about some of the Christmas parties?
Well, quite hectic. Barbara Goddard and June did a lot of, well, Barbara especially did a lot of cooking, and the girls helped as well. And it was the same when it was Halloween. They'd make all sorts of funny cakes and things, and you know, we had a couple of girls that were Asian girls, and they'd be doing chapatis on the cooker and things. You know, we just made it as fun as we possibly could. We always had the backup, of course, of the house committee that Sue's mum was secretary for, and Jack Hartill was the.
So what was their job?
Well, we had a committee meeting about every 6 weeks, and David Marriott.
My dad, my mum, and
Barbara Reid. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And how would they support you?
Well, they obviously wanted to know how things were in the house itself, and if we were if we were advertising for new staff or something like that, you know, that they were obviously in with that. Yeah, they very supportive. You know, if I was having a bit of a run-in with anybody, which you sometimes do when you get a lot of teenagers together like that, they might, you know, they were very supportive. I could talk things through, and of course the finances were always a big worry. We had a job to make ends meet, because the girls did have to contribute from their allowance. They were expected to contribute. I mean, these rules were made by family care before they came, and the social workers that brought them had to explain to them that. But they, one of the things was nappies. You know, because it was terry towel in nappies then, and there was a stall on Nottingham Market, a baby stall that sold nappies very cheap. And invariably I'd be going back with 2 packets of nappies in my hands that I'd got, you know, fairly cheap. Because somebody would be either running out or the baby was due and hadn't got any nappies and things like that. So, you know, they did their own laundry. And they were free to make drinks and things all day, you know, but their main, and their tea, they usually made well, if we had our evening meal, we'd have it together, but sometimes we had it at dinner time, and then they'd just make their own tea. The pantry was there, and what was there they help themselves too, you know. We didn't wait on them all the time, but we did encourage them to be a bit self-sufficient, yeah.
And where might they go on to after?
Well, it could be a flat. You know, some of them have their names put down on the waiting list for a council flat or council property, and then that was the responsibility of the social workers to try and help them to do that. But we've been known to take carloads of bedding and goodness knows what all over the
My dad and
place.
Steve used to do that.
He did,
yeah.
he did, yeah, he did, to try and help them to as best we could, you know. And some of them did find they were able to go back home again. We had weddings, we had christenings, we had a funeral, we had a cot death. So we'd done the rounds. Yeah. Father Cheetham, Chris Cheetham, he was the one that did most of those, yes.
And did you go to one of these weddings?
Oh, yes, because...
Can you tell us about that?
Not to the actual, but we did the party afterwards. The christenings we went to services.
Yeah.
But some of the weddings, there was one at Edwinstowe Church, I remember that very well, and another one was at the Register Office at Nottingham. But then the christenings, there's several christenings at the Clipston Church.
All Saints Church in Clipston.
Oh yes, yeah.
And what were they like?
They were lovely, yes. Father Cheetham always did a good job. It was lovely. And then people came back and we had, you know, the refreshments, cake, the lot. I mean, June and Barbara were really hands-on with that sort of thing as well, you know. And yeah, we had anything we could celebrate, we did.
When he was on about the funding, on that letter from, I found a letter from Warren House.
Family care, yeah.
For my mum, thanking her for 30 years that she's, you know, been the secretary.
Yeah.
Sorry. In the letter it says a lot of my mum's jobs was writing out to different companies to get funding.
That's right, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Which I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yes,
It enlightened me a lot.
Money was tight.
Yeah.
Latterly, I think they got. I think I'm right in saying that they got some children in need fund, and were able to replace some of the furniture and that, which was a bit belated because the writing was on the wall that they were going to close. But I understand. I think that's what they did. That was after I'd left. We were beg, borrow, steal, as they used to say. Not quite like that, but you know, anything that people gave us, we could make use of.
So how did you fundraise?
Through the garden parties, through coffee evenings, coffee mornings. Yeah.
Can you tell me about a garden party?
Oh, well, that was real fun. Because you know, everybody tried to do something, either make. I mean, the cakes and things were made in the kitchen there, but some of them would try to make different things to sell, and we collected books. I had a bookstall. I had my mum's friend, mum and dad's friend. They did a plant store because they loved plants, and they came and did a plant store. And the girls helped.
How were the community involved?
We used to put. I think we used to put a notice in the Chad, and we had either one or two of people that worked on the Chad did help to provide some equipment as well for Gwendoline Grove. Yeah, that was they did. But we used to put notes in the church, in the village hall, you know, just spread the word around and have notices up where possible to say, you know, come and join us. And
you also had a good response, though. It was always quite a lot of people there.
There always a lot of people.
Well, on that photograph I shown you with my mum on, you could see how many people were there, and that was normal. You know, whenever we went, it was that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it was a Christmas coffee morning or anything, the house would be bursting at the seams, you know. People come in, yeah. The centenary. Did you remember the centenary? And family care.
I can, yeah.
that was quite fun really, because we all dressed up in that age costume. Oh, God.
What was your costume like?
I was in a I think it was a long black skirt. I don't think I've even got any photos now. I said, I don't want to dress up. I'm not dressing up. June and Barbara went somewhere to get some costumes. Came back with this great big hat with a feather in it and a white blouse with a high neck, you know, like I said, oh, that makes me look like the matron, you know. But that was real fun, yes, and that was part of, you know, that was part of Family Care's centenary, and yes, that was lovely. So that, you know, it wasn't always, you know, and there were times when you'd think, and I can hear some of the stuff, come down here and sort the bedroom out, sort of thing, you know. They needed guidance, you know. Some of them hadn't a clue about having the birth or anything else, you know, and looking after the babies, you know. So we used to do as much with them as possible. But as I say, they just hooked in, as it were, and got on with each other, and you know, when they were in their sitting room, I'd go in for a little while and just say, anybody want anything, you know, but mostly I'd leave them to it in there. That was their sitting room, you know.
How did you deal with conflict in the home?
Well, it was sometimes it was more difficult than others. You know, if they were willing to sit down and talk about what had upset them, or you know, why they wanted to change a room or something, then that was easier. If there was a real clash over something, then you know, it would take a bit longer, and you'd have to have them individually and try and find out what was wrong and what had caused it. But we usually got through in the end, you know. And I mean, like we said, you know, you're all living together. You've got your space. Use it, you know, and do the best you can to try and see the other one's point of view. And that's the best way, really, that you can do, because nobody is forcing anybody to be here. You know, that's the thing. Nobody was forced to be there. It was a case of you know, coming somewhere where they were welcomed and helped as best they could, and that's what we had to do. We had a cot death, and that was a really sad at the time. But the girls stayed with us for a while. We had the funeral at Clipston Church. Father Chieftain took it in the cemetery at Clipston. It was a sad time, and the girl that hadn't realised at all, and I found that she was asleep. I went in to rouse them for the morning, and I knew what had happened, and we phoned the ambulance, and they came and took the and we had to deal with it from there. We kept her because she had to go and identify him, and then there was the funeral, and so you know, that was, you know, quite a time for the whole family, really. The Gwendoline Grove family.
How did you support each other?
Well, as you do, you know, you were just there, and if they wanted to talk, wanted to cry, whatever needed to be done.
And what kind of an impact do you think it had on you and your life?
Well, it's something you never forget. And it all came back when I lost the little one that I was, you know, fostering with a view to adoption. You know, it all came back again then, and you don't forget things like that. It was pretty horrific, you know. but you have to deal with it the best way you can, and talking and sharing and crying and all those sort of things, the endless cups of tea and coffee and, you know, the hugs and all, you just deal with it. And I'm sure some of the staff probably dealt with it better than others. And the girls, you know, they didn't just come to me if there was problems and things. They would share it with the rest of the staff. Anything, you know, it wasn't just you know, because I was in charge, that officer in charge, I think that was my title in the end. It wasn't just me that dealt with things like that. The rest of the staff did as well, and some of them better than others. And some of them got, you know, very friendly with them, and you know, you just have to support yourself through anything like that. For me, I've got a strong faith, and that was probably easier for me. But for those that haven't, you know, you deal with those things in the best way you can, don't you?
Did you develop any friendships while you were there?
With the girls? Yeah, there's one or two that still, well, one in particular that still comes regular to see me. And the others that I just get it. And the same with the children's homes that I worked in. They are spread about a bit now, but I often get a phone call or a letter or a card or something, you know. The girls themselves in the home, if I see them, because I sometimes will see them in Nottingham, you know, at the bus stop. Saw one a few months ago, and she said, "You'll never guess how so and so is married." I said, "Right, okay." You know, you kind of forget how the years have gone, and you know that, you know, you've probably been there when they were born. So you know, it varies. It varies. Yeah, they're always welcome. You know, always. Yeah.
So although Gwendoline Grove is long gone,
yeah, yes,
it's still alive in many ways.
Yeah,
and
I think it is in people's minds. And you know, I mean, if you spoke to some of the girls, then you'd get their story. I can only give you mine.
Do you want to talk about your adoptions and your girls or anything like that?
Well, when I first left Gwendoline Grove, it was to foster, and I fostered a few children. But then I decided that I really wanted to adopt, you know. So I moved into this house because I'd only got a one-bedroom flat. And it was babies I was fostering, so that was okay. But to adopt, you know, was a longer period. And so I moved into here, and I've been here 35 years, and and I've enjoyed that. But and I wouldn't have swapped either of them. They both had had the problem. Well, Catherine couldn't talk at all, and she. You know, she could be quite stroppy, but she, you know, we loved her just the same, or I loved her just the same, and so did Emily. And Emily now never misses a day without saying, "I miss my sister. I do miss Catherine." And they, you know, they had some happy times together, you know. So I've no regrets at it at all. No.
So how old were they when they came to you?
Emily was 11 days. And Catherine was 5. It was a bit of a roller coaster journey, but we got there in the end, and it's now 6 years since Catherine died. So that was, and she died very suddenly as well. So that was very hard for Emily and I, and our friends and family. No warning whatsoever. So, but Emily still goes to the same day centre, and you know, they're very supportive. But before them, I'd fostered 2 little black children, brother and sister, who were absolutely adorable, and they went on to be adopted. And three other children that I fostered as well before I got Emily and Catherine, just to keep my hand in. And even when I got Emily and Catherine, I still fostered the babies. Yeah. So, yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a busy household. I'd have a playpen here and a cot here, and and then my mum was more able to spend time and help as well. It became, you know, when I had to stop fostering. Well, I stopped fostering then because I couldn't manage then my mum and my 2 and more foster children, although the odd one too did manage to creep in. Where can I go? Oh dear. Yes. Family care were quite good at that. Landing on your doorstep or picking the phone up. Joan!
So you said that you lost your daughter quite suddenly. How do you and Emily keep her memory alive?
Well, there's a box in the front room with her picture on, and anything that we want to put it, we put cards in and memories from the funeral, and every now and then Emily will do a picture and say, I'm just going to put this in Catherine's box. So, you know, she's part of our family still. You know, we've never tried to push it out of sight or anything. She's there, and say Emily never misses a day. It might be morning when she wakes up, it might be before she goes to bed, might be when she comes in, you know. She really misses her. And Emily she'd say, Mum, why can't we have the babies back? I said, because I haven't got any energy left. I can't manage them now, not to be up night and day as well. This is a quieter period of my life than I've ever been. Yeah, so it's usually been because with children's homes, when I worked in children's homes, anything for a party, a birthday party or a Christmas or whatever came up, you know, it was always very lively. But, you know, one of my oldest children that I had in a children's home has just had her 70th birthday, and she's a great grandma, and I'm still Auntie Joan. I'm still Auntie Joan to them all, so yeah.
So looking back over your life, what are you most proud of?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm especially proud of anything. I'm pleased that I've been able to do so much for so many children, and you know, to care for them, and whether it be give them a start in life or whether to still carry on with their support, because that's what I want to do.
Something that has come up quite a few times, and I don't know if you're aware of it, is scrumping in the grounds. Do you know anything about that?
Not very much. I didn't want to know, really. If somebody had said there's been scrumping up there, well, okay, good luck. I mean, there were bat boxes as well up there as well. There was bat at the bottom of the garden. I